Red light means we're on. Now we're gonna have this moving in the background.
Let's do this thing.
Yes! What's up, insiders? This video is gonna be on content ID, copyright, fair use, everything in that bucket. So hello, I am Barbara.
And I'm David. And I am the PM who's responsible for Content ID.
Just want to caveat this video by saying, as a reminder, we are not lawyers. This is not legal advice at all. We're simply trying to have an informal conversation where we're trying to give you our opinions and our perspectives on the world. Go check out the Help Center for all of the official documentation about everything that we're talking about today. Okay, we're gonna start off with an easy one. How should creators think about fair use?
YouTube doesn't have its own definition of fair use. Fair use is a concept in copyright law that says there are certain ways that you can take advantage of copyrighted material that does not require a license. Just to be clear, fair use is a really essential part of copyright. I mean, that is the mechanism that allows, critique, and it allows people to do things educationally and use material in ways that a license either, would be likely denied because you're saying, hey, I watched this film and it was terrible and look how they shot this scene. Yeah. Or other situations like that where you wouldn't get a license. So it's a really essential part of copyright, and it's an essential part of copyright on YouTube. The challenge is, again, that the final determination can't be on YouTube. It has to escalate outside of YouTube to get to a final determination of, yes, this is fair use, and no, it's not. My opinion about fair use, your legal counsel's opinion about fair use, these are all helpful, but ultimately the only place where we can say this is or is not fair use is with a judge. And we've seen lots of cases that have baffled even, where one judge has been overturned by another judge in an appeal. So even among judges, there's not a good, easy way of what's definitely fair use.
Yeah.
As everybody knows, Content ID is mostly a matching system. And so when you're matching things, the context around that is really not possible to determine.
Oh, yeah.
So the system will identify a match and say there's a claim there. It can't know about fair use. And so what we do in Content ID, because we know that the system is not able to detect fair use, we've tried to build the dispute process so that creators don't hit a dead end and they can make informed decisions and escalate that dispute as high up as they need to, ultimately, if necessary, all the way up to a judge. And unfortunately, that's just the way it works. That's the only place where fair use can finally be determined.
Okay, so this already is kind of blowing my mind. So fair use is something that really pertains to legal cases. And within sort of the YouTube system, that part doesn't really happen until you have a claim, you dispute the claim, and then there's appeal process, and like all the way at the end of this process is really when these fair use terms come up.
And I guess to that end, it's really important that creators understand how our dispute and appeal process works, and what risks they're taking as they go through that, and so they can make a really informed decision about how they want to move forward if they choose to rely on fair use.
Do you want to get in on that? Get into that?
Sure. Just at a real high level, because it's there's quite a bit to it, but at a very high level, after you get a claim, and again, the claim is essentially saying we have found a match between this piece of material that was given to us by a content owner and this bit of material in your video, you now have an option to dispute that claim. And if you choose to dispute that claim, there's no risk to your channel. You're not going to get a strike or anything like that for a dispute.
Okay. That's a key point. I've had a lot of creators ask me, at which point in this whole process is it going to be detrimental to my channel?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that dispute has to go to the content owner. People ask, why can't YouTube look at that dispute?
Okay. Yes. Good question.
Right. So that's a challenge. That YouTube has no knowledge of what parts of the content owner owns, what they license, how they interpret fair use, if they're going to back off early, because they do have the right, the ability to back off early. They don't have to go to court. They could just say, yeah, that's close enough to fair use and move it away. So YouTube's not able to make those determinations for the owner.
Okay.
So you can do your dispute, and that might be accepted. They might back off the claim, and we actually, that does happen. I think a lot of creators would argue that it doesn't happen often enough, and I think that's a fair point. The next step would be to go to the appeal. So the appeal is a piece we introduced because we didn't want creators to ever hit a dead end. So we wanted them to have the right to take their fair use argument all the way to a court if they wanted to.
Okay.
And that appeal basically gives creators the option to tell the claimant, the person who's claiming their video,
Yep.
get off my video or issue a legal copyright removal. And the reason we did that is that by forcing the claimant to issue a legal copyright removal, they are exposing themselves to liability potentially for fraud, because a legal copyright removal is a legal object. It's a legal action rather, and so there are penalties for making a fraudulent legal removal. Okay. So they tend to take those decisions much more seriously. So as a creator, you can now appeal your video. Now you do have to understand that the appeal, you're giving the content owner two options: take your claim off or issue a takedown on my video. Mm-hmm. And as many creators know, a takedown on a video comes with a copyright strike.
Yep. Yeah.
So this is part of the kind of mandated repeat infringer policy that YouTube must follow under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the DMCA.
Yep.
Some acronyms to throw up to make this more fun. You will get a copyright strike if the claimant issues a takedown. Really, really essential that creators understand that one copyright strike does not impact any functionality of your channel.
You still get to keep all of your features.
Right. So you're risking a copyright strike, and you are risking your video. All the features will stay. The copyright strike will expire in 90 days. Appeals are considered more carefully by claimants than disputes are. Because they're exposing themselves to some risk. I guess just following through the rest of the process, just because we're here.
Okay, so we've made it through the appeal. We're either getting a takedown or the claimant backs off. Okay.
Yeah, so best case they back off. Worst case, now we're sitting there and we've got a takedown. We've got a strike on our channel, which is going to take 90 days to expire. It's not affecting functionality of the channel, but it's there and it sucks.
But it will affect functionality if you get 3 total strikes on your channel. So do keep that in mind.
If you get 3 strikes at the same time, so if before the strike is expired, that would result in the channel getting terminated. Be careful about that. But you're sitting there and you now have this video that has been taken down. You have the right to submit a counter notice to YouTube.
Is this done through YouTube?
This is done through YouTube. Okay. So the counter notice basically is saying, I would like my video put back up, and so if the claimant is not willing to file a lawsuit, YouTube has to put the video back up.
Wow.
So it escalates fairly quickly, which is why it's so important to have some legal advice to understand what your position is. Now, again, now we're escalating even further.
Yeah.
The claimants spend a lot of time thinking about these. And so, whereas some of the earlier decisions they might make a little hastily, this feels like a pretty big one. They think pretty carefully because, they also are wary about bad fair use cases. And so they will be very thoughtful about these. So you should understand your rights and understand your position. But it isn't out of the question to pull this lever. So if you submit a counter notice to YouTube, we will review that counter notice and make sure that it's complete and valid.
Okay.
And then we'll forward it to the claimant.
Okay.
And now we have to wait, again by law, 10 business days, I think that's the number, before we can restore your video. And if they don't provide to us evidence that they have filed a lawsuit, then we will restore the video and take away the strike.
Can they do something after those 10 days?
No.
Or it's only this 10-day window where an action must happen. Otherwise, it's all done.
Yeah. So we also don't let them go again. So they can obviously they can sue anyone they want at any time, but they can't issue another takedown on the same video.
Holy jeez, there was a total mind warp about all things content ID, matching, appeals, disputes, counter notices, all wrapped up in one.
It's a complicated world.
It is.
And yeah, I kind of see my job on the creator team as being the guy who has to sit between this pretty scary and complicated set of legal rules and some pretty complicated kind of content industry deals with YouTube, and also fight for the creators' rights. And it's, it is an area that we are constantly working on, constantly trying to push.
Yeah.
The fact is that these laws really, they weren't created to work at scale. They work well when they are, again, individual cases that get argued by two lawyers and in front of a judge. They don't work well at the scale of YouTube. And so we're always trying to figure out how to maintain fairness and operate at the scale we need to keep things running.
Okay, so I have some questions that you've dropped as comments on our videos that now that you've gone through explaining fair use and the claiming, appealing, counter notice process, I'm not even sure if the questions make sense, but I'm hoping you can give our watchers some quick answers to the questions, how they've been asking them.
Sure.
Okay? Can you read books? Is that fair use?
So, assuming that the book is copyrighted, because some books are in the public domain, but assuming that the book is copyrighted, I would say that, if you read a book cover to cover, probably going to infringe on somebody's copyright there. Not a lawyer, so again, my opinion,
all those caveats still.
Those things. But if you were to say you wanted to critique something about a character or a style of how the book was written or something like that, then that would lean more towards a fair use determination.
What are guidelines for reaction, news, drama videos when you want to use clips and be reacting to those clips?
Yeah, so
audio-visual clips, to be super declarative.
React is one area that we've had actually a little bit of a test case, right? So we had the H3H3 case, where there was some famous YouTubers who reacted to some other YouTubers, and that actually did go to a court and was found to be fair use. And that ruling was actually quite useful for looking at some other ones. So the kinds of things that the judge considered were how much commentary was added, and how much of the material they used. They went pretty far to really be reacting to the video and adding more to it than just watching the video and chuckling here and there and maybe saying, "Oh, that was funny." Where that really became stronger fair use cases is the commentary on the video itself, not just reacting like, "Oh, I'm surprised, I'm disappointed," or whatever, but like the analysis that they did watching that video about the video and the creator.
I guess this is somewhat related. I guess that did cover, is it possible to fairly use clips from TV? Does it matter where these clips come from, whether they come from YouTube, TV, other sources? Does that matter at all?
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Every time somebody makes any kind of a recording or fixes any idea, that effectively is copyrighted, right? So if you draw a picture, that's your copyright.
Okay, that covers the next question, which is, can I use other content from YouTube?
Anytime you use somebody else's copyrighted material without permission, you are taking some degree of chance that you're going to end up having to defend yourself with fair use.
So I'm going to ask a question that I'm really interested in.
Sure.
Do you absolve yourself, or does it help your case in any way if there is text that is embedded in the video before the video, somewhere in the video, or if it happens to be in the description or is in the title that says something to the tune of "no copyright infringement intended"?
Right. No, generally that won't have any bearing on it. It shows that you understand that it was copyrighted, which could be a problem depending on your arguments. But ultimately, the fair use determination wouldn't consider that at all. So declaring that it's somebody else's material, saying that, hey, this, somebody else, if you don't like it, please call me or email me instead of issuing a takedown. You can do that. It won't make from a legal position, I don't think it will change your.
And it also doesn't change anything with respect to content ID. Content ID is not going to look at your description and say, "Oh, they didn't intend copyright infringement, so we won't do anything with these videos." Like, it does not get you covered anywhere within our automated systems at all.
No, and that's just because it doesn't actually have any bearing on on whether or not it's infringement.
How much does time and the length of a clip or a piece of content that you use factor into fair use or copyright?
Right.
Here.
So one of the factors in determining fair use is how much of the material you use.
Yep.
But that alone isn't a very strong fair use argument. So if you use just a few seconds of a song in order to kind of analyze how the guitar riff is played, then the fact that you used very little is helpful for your case. But if you just use a few seconds of a song just because it sounds great at that point in your video,
okay,
that fact that it's short is not going to be a very strong factor. It's not going to be.
So
weighted heavily.
There's no minimum amount of time that somebody can claim.
There's no minimum. In fact, there's lots of cases of samples and things like that where musicians and songwriters sue each other for using small amounts of each other's material, even just a few chord progression or a few notes.
Okay, I know it's a bit of a doozy. There was a ton of information in there about content ID and fair use, but thank you, David, for sitting down and explaining all of it to us. If this was useful for you, if you want to see more videos about content ID, copyright, fair use, everything that would fall under that bucket, please let us know by hitting that like button on this video. And if you have follow-up questions, drop them as comments down below. You guys know the drill. Once again, we are Creator Insider. We are your informal source for information about YouTube from the tech teams directly ourselves. Please do hit that subscribe button if you would like to get more information, more videos like this. Tick the bell to make sure you get notified whenever we upload. I will see you guys in the next video.